I was just leaving the bank and I cannot believe what I saw with my own two eyes. Previous to that, two days ago, maybe yesterday, I had this discussion with somebody. I said, most of America does not realize that we are just a few bolts or tools away from the country falling apart. And I'm not just trying to be negative and gloom and doom. I'm just trying to draw attention to things that need to be drawn attention to. So for instance, my son, who is a mechanic, has replaced the same alternator with a new alternator 3 different times. And he is now marking that car. And he's like, listen, whoever is rebuilding these alternators or whoever is manufacturing the new alternators in either case, they don't care anymore. They're not producing any kind of quality. And that car will not be dependable. So what happens if a major corporation who is producing something like this puts out a huge batch? Let's say 1 million alternators get put out there, and all of a sudden you just got 1 million cars that don't function, and then that corporation goes under or whatnot. We don't realize how close to awful things we are. But back to my story, the point being, as I was leaving the bank, I see this odd sight. There are 2 guys that are walking around a car together, and one of them has this bright yellow vest on, and I was like, okay, and he's carrying the spare tire, and he's looking at this other guy who looks very bewildered. This guy's about 35 years old, and he just looks utterly bewildered. And then I realized, I look over there, and there's a tow truck behind him, and all of a sudden it dawned on me that the 35-year-old guy had called his rescue insurance number because he didn't know how to change the tire on his car. Now, let me tell you, there are times for rescue tire situations, such as I pulled off on the road at Atlanta. I had a flat tire. I had all the equipment to change the tire with, but where we had to park and the jack could not get low enough to lift the car up. You need a rescue number. Praise God, I had the rescue number, so I just called the rescue number. Somebody showed up with a low-angle jack or a low entrance jack, was able to get underneath the car. We could change the tire and move on with life. But this guy, it was obvious he didn't know how to change a tire. He didn't know how to loosen the lug nuts. He didn't know how to operate a jack. He didn't know where the stuff was located. And he was an able-bodied citizen. Now, I want you to think about the dynamic here and what is happening. If you're on a plane, one of the things that a flight attendant, at least according to the movies, one of the things a flight attendant is supposed to do is they're supposed to kind of pick out ahead of time who is an able-bodied person, and traditionally it has been male, who is an able-bodied male that can open this door and make sure the slide is thrown out and inflated and can organize and throw people out, maybe lead the way. I don't know the whole process, but I'm saying it was always classified as who was able-bodied, because if somebody is too weak to open the door, then you're not going to have anything done. Well, this guy was able-bodied, but he didn't have the know-how, which a skill set is fine, or lacking tools is fine. Those things can be overcome. But he didn't have just baseline exposure to masculine things. Now, some are going to be looking at this and like, quit judging people. Like, what? We don't have to go with that macho John Wayne attitude. I've heard that recently. Somebody was like, Clint Eastwood machoism is dead. Think about this. Think about it. This guy was in crisis mode. He's leaving the store. He's fixing to get in his car. The car's leaning. He's like, oh, I'm stuck. I can't do anything. I got to call my rescue number. So here's an able-bodied man, and he calls somebody to rescue him who is an able-bodied man. Think about the dynamic here. If you are bleeding to death because you have been cut, you probably do need somebody with another skill set or training to come and assist you. But at what point does independence and dependence and productivity matter to a society where the individual units are functioning for the good of all? And I'm telling you, this is becoming backwards, and it's failing, and it's falling apart, and something has to be done about it. It is not a crime if someone doesn't know how to change the tire on their car, but this is a symptom of something catastrophic that's happening. This guy is representative of all those out there that can't do such. And this wouldn't have been seen a few years back. It just wouldn't even be thought about. And in a lot of circles, men find let's say boys even find their rite of passage. Like, hey, I changed the tire on my own the other day. But again, you've got a able-bodied man that is not producing enough and not connected enough and not associated enough with reality to rescue himself from a very mild situation. We've all had our guffaws, and I hope I'm not just picking on this guy on some random day in the only area he's weak in. But I think symptomatic of our society, we are losing touch with what it takes to be prepared to actually provide for others. You see, that's the traditional role of masculinity, is to provide and protect others. But when that is beginning to atrophy and fall apart like weak muscles, then it may be time to train those things. So in the scriptures, one of the things that we are told in the book of Genesis is that man is going to eat by the sweat of his brow. That means men actually need to be engaged in things that are difficult, and they need to be expanding their horizons. They need to be getting out from under the babysitting concept and attribute of everything's electric and everything's luxurious and everything comes by mail. And we actually need to get in touch with some baseline masculinity before things really go south and before they crash and burn right before our eyes. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because you can't even get service anymore. You can't, I don't know if you have paid attention to this, but the workforce is declining. The service is declining. Masculinity is declining. And we need to be pushing back on all those fronts. So if you're a man, push into your skill sets. Push beyond your skill sets. Push beyond where you're comfortable. I'll just tell you, power tools when I was smaller scared me to death. All I could think about was cutting my fingers off. And very masculine men every day still cut their fingers off. But if you push into those boundaries, you can actually get in touch with who you are as a human, and find out that just like you can accomplish in the world of success and be patted on the back, that when you push into the physical parameters of what you were created for and find out that you can do more than you thought you could, that is a pat on the back in and of itself. So I know I've been all over the place with this, but just realize if you're a man, push further. If you're raising children, get them in touch. Like, let little boys be little boys. Push them to do masculine things. Get them hands-on. Get them out from under the television and the laptops and the game systems and the phones, etc. Get them in touch with physical reality and work so that they're not stranded at a Kroger.